We are the Ministry of the Real Truth, and today we present you with this particular video titled Host Stunned by Shocking Proof That Matthew in the Gospels Corrupted the Virgin Birth Passage, starring Rabbi Tovia Singer, hosted by the Gnostic Informant on his channel or show, YouTube channel or show. Rabbi Tovia Singer goes into great details about the translator Franz Delitzsch, who embarked on translating the Christian Bible back into Hebrew, from the Greek into the Hebrew, as he wanted to convert the Jews to Christianity. He was a giant in his field, and his translations were so well done that it is still the Hebrew translation of the New Testament to this day. People refer to that. It's really, really good, apparently. And they give an example of Luke 1:27 and state that this person, Franz Delitzsch, didn't use the word Alma, which is Hebrew for virgin, but the word Batula. He was stuck in the book of Isaiah, translated the book of Isaiah. So he used Batula, or he used Alma, to try to fix the error. Let's have a look at this book if we can find it, or another of his just like it. He uses Alma instead of Batula to fix the error stated by Tovia Singer, as he realised the error of Matthew using the word Batula, the Hebrew word Batula. Let's see how it's translated via the original ancient sacred scribal Lishana Artica Cypraea, the language of God which he spoke to Adam and Eve in the garden in the minute the Tower of Babel spoke. Of the original ancient, very old Aramaic, Assyrian Aramaic, or Tav Asherit, the sister language of the Tav Ivri, or the original ancient, very old Hebrew. The manuscripts, the New Testament manuscripts, were given to the original Church of the East, Apostolic Church of the East, founded by Addai, or the disciple Thomas, with the help of Bartholomew and Peter, etc. And what they witnessed Yeshua Mashiach, or Jesus the Messiah, say, do, etc., they wrote down, and the Church of Jerusalem was destroyed. So somebody grabbed those manuscripts or those texts and ran with them across lands to China, to India, etc., where Thomas was martyred, run through with a spear by the Brahmins. So we're going to have a look at this to see what they had to say. Then we'll have a comparison with the original ancient, very old Aramaic scriptures, translated in English by native-born Aramaic-speaking translator Victor N. Alexander from Mesopotamia, Syria, who's had 20 or so years, 25 years of translating these particular scriptures into the nearest English equivalent. He was using the Eastern Syriac Peshitta, which apparently Tovia Singer, according to James Francisco, who has 2 doctorates, 2 PhDs in the Aramaic and the Hebrew, or the Hebrew and the Greek, Aramaic, something like that. We had a talk with him, and he said that he actually met this Rabbi Tovia Singer, and he can't stand the Gospels, the Christian Gospels, and he can't get his head around the Syriac Peshitta, the Eastern Peshitta, and so forth. And he's also met Angel Gabriel Roth, and also Victor N. Alexander, and he has his own personal views on those 3. So we have done the research. Okay, let's have a listen to what these men have to say.
So let's get into the text now. Let's get into, for example, it says the most Christians will point to, but what about Psalm 20? Or what about Isaiah 14, where it talks about, I think it's Isaiah 4, whatever it says that a virgin shall be born. Let's start with that one. Let's start with that. What is it? Let's get into this. What does it really say in the Hebrew? And how did it go from what it says in the Hebrew to what it says in Greek?
Yeah, so how do you, like people fake their driver's license? Like, how do people cash checks that were never in them? They forge, they change text, they print it out, they have 3D printers that can do it. I mean, how, what? Alright, so the text in Isaiah 7:14 says, L'chein yitem Hashem hu lechem os, behold, the Lord of his own will give you a sign. Hine alma hora, behold, the young woman is pregnant, v'yoled bain, and she's going to give birth to a son, v'karas shemo Emmanuel, and she will call his name Emmanuel. That's the text.
Let me just jump in.
Okay, so that's the text from the Hebrew, the modern Israeli Hebrew, into the nearest English equivalent, according to Tovia Singer, right? So we're going to go and compare it with the original ancient, very old Testament Aramaic, with the Tab Eshet, from the Lishan Artika Suprae, the sacred scribal language of God. Isaiah 7:14, we think he said. Okay, because of that, the Lord God, Umaya Alaha, Umaran Alaha, gives you this sign. Take note, or look, behold, the virgin, the young woman, shall conceive and give birth to a son, and his name shall be called Emmanuel, and it has a footnote indication there. So it has here, the tuned staples and the pure honey he shall eat, so as he may know how to denigrate the evil and choose the good, whereas the land of the two kings where you are being oppressed shall be forsaken. So that, we just have brain fart. I thought, right, that sounds like it's talking about John the Baptist, who came before the Christ, who said, make straight the paths for the Lord, etc. Right? John the Baptizer. But we're not too sure on that one. Just an idea that flashed in our mind just a couple of seconds ago. So we'll have a look at that footnote indication, because he always provides footnotes underneath each chapter in every book. So look at 7:14. Umano Il. This is in the ancient Galilean. Okay, this is in the Old Testament, so it's in the Tab Eshet, right? Lishana Artika Sapra, sacred scribal language of God. 7:14. Umano Il. With us is Il, or God is among us. This is the prophecy regarding the coming of Jesus. The prophetic vision was a reward for King Ahaz's faithfulness in not putting God to the test. Okay, so he was rewarded, this King Ahaz, for that. It's God speaking to King Ahaz, apparently, because he didn't put God to the test. Okay, so we'll go back to Tovia Singer. So looks like there's similar there, okay, except the name Emmanuel, which I don't think he explained, means with us is Il, with us is God, as God is among us. How the Christ came as God in the flesh, he was incarnate, he was God incarnate, etc., etc. That's what it's saying there. Let's go back to listen to some more of what they had to say.
Say I'm a Christian on the street, and you just told me that, and I'll say, well, why can't the word Alma mean virgin? What do you say to that?
So what we would do is we would find let's say you don't know any Hebrew at all. Like, how do you know the Jews aren't making this up? Okay, this is good. This is real. So let's think. I want to think this through with you. So presumably you don't speak Hebrew. So, like, how do you know? Now, you can go to any Israeli in the world and say, how do you say virgin Hebrew? Virginity is really important in faith in the Bible. It's a word that appears nearly 150 times. Isaiah uses it numerous times. So, being a virgin is a real big deal, and it's the same word in both biblical and modern Hebrew. But how do you know? I mean, there's a lot at stake, because if Matthew in chapter 1, verse 23 lied about this, then the whole New Testament loses its credibility, and Christianity is the biggest fraud that was perpetrated on mankind. So how do you know I'm telling you the truth? There's a lot of...
Okay, so he said the meaning of the word is the same in the biblical Hebrew and the modern Hebrew. Well, we dispute that because if they've added vowels to it in that nikda, or whatever it's called, that dot system, it will change the structure of that particular language, and also the words, the meaning of the words. So with the ancient Aramaic being the sister of that particular language, that original ancient, very old Tav Ivri or Hebrew, then if you added that nikda or whatever it's called, vowel system, etc., etc., the words in the original Aramaic and the words in that original Hebrew, which these are both long dead languages, nobody uses them anymore. They have modern vernaculars, right? Modern versions of it that they could probably read from their text, right? Their liturgy, etc., etc. These words say yom, say iuma, which means immeasurable period, era, eon, age, day with a capital D, because the Hebrew day is based on a solar lunar calendar, the Creator's calendar, and it's very weird. Possibly the Hebrew is also the same. So those words would be, okay, you got yom, which is day, Hebrew for day, meaning a day of the week, right? As far as we've come to understand it. So there's a difference there. Because of that vowel system, changing the structure and the meaning of those words that were originally similar, the same, they aren't speaking those long dead old languages unless they find and use a certain method to do so, because those languages are long dead and gone the way of the dinosaur. So we've made a comparison there. Let's click on this so here's more.
I'll tell you a lot of stuff. First of all, so what we would like to do, even though it's a very well known, what we'd like to do is we'd like to take the word Alma, which appears many times in the Hebrew Bible, and see how it is used in other places. That means, for example, in Proverbs chapter 30, verse 19, we're told about Der Gever B'Alma. The way of a man is with a young woman. And then it continues discussing that she is actually an adulterous woman. And after they commit an act of fornication, all she has to do is wash herself up and say, I have done nothing wrong. That's some virgin for you.
So that's some kind of weird Middle Eastern or Levant or Jewish, however you put it, translation of one particular Hebrew word. Is it Alma? Right? But she's a wayward woman. She's either a prostitute or she's an adulteress or something like that. So she would not be a virgin. But in their case, for her to be a virgin again, would declare that she just has to go and bathe, clean herself up. That's kind of weird. Is that what he's saying? That's what we believe he's saying. Right? So it's different to...
He uses the word Alma there, right?
Yes.
Mary
Look,
be the virgin.
Alma. Sweethearts.
That is a good example right there. Wow.
Bing bongo. In 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 56, King David is called an Elam. That's the masculine version of this. So, what was King David then a virgin too? I mean, this is outrageous, and it is women. Look, it is young women that get pregnant and have babies, as opposed to old women. This is really simple. I'll tell you something I never told anyone publicly. I mean, I just never came up. I'll tell you something really interesting. The Christian Bible was translated into the Hebrew language in the 19th century. It's a very, very famous translation, and it was done by a guy named Franz Delitzsch. Franz Delitzsch was a genius of a Hebraist. He was a Christian, a devout Christian, and he was one of in the Christian world, he was one of the greatest, if not the greatest Hebraist of the 19th century. His commentary on what he called the Old Testament is necessary for all scholars to understand every Christian view of all this stuff. Okay, he's just right now he's just huge. Okay, he embarks on translating the Christian Bible into the Hebrew language. Why he does it? Well, he would like Jews to believe in Jesus, so he translates the New Testament in Hebrew. Now, here's what's so interesting.
I don't know if this is the same version, but this is. I was going to show you this at the end, but I used to get this. They used to pass this out at my church. They're Hope for Israel Bibles. They're New Testament.
Okay, this is going to blow your crazy mind away. What I'm about to say, I've never said on air before. Okay, so you're going to get this, and this is going to pow. Okay, so right now, just take my word for it until you Google it. Franz Delitzsch is a giant. He was and his translation really is so well done, and it is. It's like just so well done that it is still the Hebrew translation of the New Testament to this day. I mean, every year. And we didn't arrange this. You happen to have one in front of you. Okay, this is beautiful. So here's a very interesting thing we can do. See, what Christians are arguing is that the word Alma, that means a virgin, but like a married virgin. This is such a scam, you have no idea. So, if you go to the book of Luke, now I don't know, because I can't see you, for the viewers know that I can't see you, so I just hear. So if you go to Luke chapter 1 verse 27, in that Bible done by Franz Delitzsch, was given up by whatever, New Hope, there are a lot of places that give this out, okay? That is the text where Mary is called a virgin, to a virgin betrothed to a man named Joseph of the house of David, and the virgin's name was Mary, okay?
Okay, so if that's stating that she's a virgin, and according to was it Seventh-day Adventist, that a friend of ours, her foster mother was of a hospital called Bethesda here in our country, and we went there and we were talking to a guy who seemed to have quite a good knowledge of scripture. He did the research, etc., and he stated that it was possible that Mary was 13 or 14 when she was pregnant with the Christ. Okay, so no contact with Joseph. She didn't sleep with Joseph, and that's not his seed, right? It's all the Holy Spirit according to the Christian New Testament, etc., right? The Christian theology belief system. Okay, yeah, she was about that age. They today people go, "Ooh, that's incest, that's underage molestation, etc., etc." Whatever they want to refer to it today. But in those days, it's like these people didn't live long; they died young, disease, murder, all that sort of stuff. People coming and invading their village, their little city or whatever, country town, and putting people to the sword, all that sort of stuff. You didn't last long. You'd be lucky to live to 20, even lucky if you lived to 30, right, and beyond that. Yeah, so people also poo-poo Muhammad because supposedly he married Aisha at 6 or 9 or something, and then supposedly, obviously, eventually slept with her or something like that. Still at a minor age and all this sort of stuff, so people giving crap, right? But they got to understand. Look at both sides of the coin, right? We're not promoting it, but look at both sides of the coin, right? There's always two sides to any story, sometimes three. Well, it could be an antagonist, but there's usually two sides to any story, right? Instead of like going and poking the finger, right? Oh, you're sick, you're evil, all that sort of stuff. Step back and analyse it, because again, in those days, people die young because of disease, invaders, barbarians, whatever, right? Perhaps it was the custom to do that. Old enough to, as far as the modern saying goes, some people's attitude to that. They just have no strong moral. Opportunity opens its doors is a saying that we've here at a briefing at our job, we see it written up there, meme or whatever, JPEG image, saying when opportunity strikes, or opportunity pops up, get in there and seize that opportunity. That's the same sort of thing, like someone stole a vacuum cleaner or borrowed it without asking, had to run around and find it, etc., etc. The guest just helped themselves. So I tried to explain to these people, well, there was an opportunity, they saw an opportunity, so they took advantage of it. So this is what he is saying there. We could compare that particular verse with what he stated, which is basically Luke 1:26 from the Galilean Aramaic manuscripts translated into the nearest English equivalent by Victor and Alexander. Where were we? 26. But in the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent from Allah, or God in the Aramaic, to Galilee, to the town by the name of Nazareth, to the virgin that was betrothed to the man, she was engaged to him, right, whose name was Joseph, or married him, or promised to the man whose name was Joseph, of the house of David, and the name of the Virgin Mary was Mary. And the angel settled near her and said to her, okay, she's from the house of David, supposedly Joseph was from the house of Solomon, etc., etc. A lot of his ancestors, they did wrong by God and they're destroyed, so his lineage, his bloodline, obviously couldn't bring forth that promised Messiah, that Christ, so it came through Mary's line, who were more righteous, did right by God, etc., etc. It's amazing how prophecy happens, right? Way back in the Old Testament, it's probably prophecy that he would come through the house of David, the Virgin Mary, or a virgin, a young woman, etc. Okay, and she was blessed amongst all women. She was a lucky woman to give birth to the promised Messiah. Okay, so it's pretty much the same as what Tovia Singer was on about, except the name here is different. Okay, it's a footnote indication, 2 of them, so we're going to have a look at those at the bottom here, because it is important to fully understand it. 126, 1 is the first footnote indication. Literal Aramaic idiom or expression, revelation of Allah. It's the revealing of God. Okay, God incarnate in the flesh. 126.2, literal Aramaic idiom or expression, Nusrat, the victorious. You find in Matthew 1:26 in the Aramaic. It says that he shall be called, he should be known as Nusrat, which means the victorious, because he remained sinless. He did what God told him to do. He died on the cross, was resurrected. His blood was shed for the sins of man, right? He would defeat the devil, etc., etc. Okay, and he's the manifestation of God, and God is the manifestation of he is the manifestation of God, God incarnate, and God is the embodiment of that manifestation, or Milta. There is no English equivalent for the word Milta, according to the translator, so he had to run around and find a word that was fitting of it, so he came up with manifestation, that which wasn't known, and then it was suddenly revealed, basically. Okay. So Mary found blessings with or through Allah, or God. So we go back to this video.
It's Luke chapter 1 verse 27. I plead with you to look this up.
Got it right here. Luke chapter 1. Lucas.
Verse
I
27.
actually know how to read a little bit of Hebrew. I can't say it. I can read the words though. I mean, you can't see, but just so people can see. See, it says on the top. It says El Lamek Vav Kof Samek. That's Lucas. All right. So Lucas chapter 1. What is it?
verse 27.
Verse 27. So you're saying that he translated it back to Hebrew?
Yeah, so he took the Greek and he translated it into Hebrew, okay? Got it? That's what Franz Delitzsch does at the end of the 19th century. This is a very famous thing, okay?
Okay. I'm looking at the verse. Let me see if I can find the word. What's the word?
I've never done this on air.
No.
So the word virgin, you would think he'd use the word alma, because after all, it's the word alma that means a virgin.
Yeah, I don't
But
see the word alma here.
But what you do see is betula. So look up the Hebrew that he's using. The word betula will appear in the Hebrew of Franz Delitzsch twice. It says, in Delitzsch's translation, it says, El betula.
Oh my God, found it.
Rasha Li'ish, Asher Shmo Yosef mi Beis David, B'Shem HaBesula Miriam.
I'm going to show you right now. Hold on, I just found it.
You found it, right? So am I making this up?
Look at whoever's watching this right now. Verse 27, it says, Gazarat El Betula.
Betula, bingo. This is mind-blowing. You know, I was always a little nervous. I'm not, this is not like we didn't arrange this. You had no idea I was going to discuss this. I've never discussed this with anyone on air. It just sort of never came up. But here, that's crazy. Do you see what I'm saying? Look, there's a lot at stake here. I mean, if Christianity is a true religion, everyone should be in church. And if it isn't, it is the worst human iteration in history. It's the worst thing in the world. And here's the scam. I'm showing it to you quite literally in black and white. Isn't it blown away? I mean,
1 second. I gotta explain this to people who might not understand what I'm talking about.
Take your time.
The word betula is not in Isaiah. In this particular Hebrew New Testament, he's quoting Isaiah, but he's changing the word from alma, which means young woman, he's changing it to the word betula, which means virgin, showing you that the verse is wrong and he had to fix it.
It gets even naughtier, a little naughtier. I'm going to edge of you going, how can it get naughtier than this? So, as it turns out, Luke doesn't quote the verse, he just says it, and that's the way Luke does, he just says it. Matthew actually says, like it says in the prophet in Matthew 1:23. So you'll notice in Delitzsch's translation, which you have in front of you, in Matthew 1:23, so he's forced. If you go there, he used the word alma, because he's stuck, because he's saying he's quoting Isaiah in Matthew 1:23. You have to keep a finger in Luke 1:27. You see what I mean? This is more scammy than, this is so over the top that if you're pregnant, if your mother was ever pregnant, if you could spell the word pregnant, this show is not for you. This could just flip you out when I'm showing you. This is like the scam of, not of the century, of the last 1,000 years, 2,000 years. And here, again, I am using a hostile witness. That means Franz Delitzsch was a devout Christian. He translated the Christian Bible to Hebrew to convert Jews to Christianity because it was in Hebrew. And it is just the most, by far the most famous translation. Other people have tried it after him. No one got close, and it actually reads very well. He did a terrific job on the translation. But he knew himself, when Luke is going to use the term virgin about Mary, he knew that the word to use, the betula, not the word alma, thus uncovering the scam of Matthew. That's how mind-blowing this is.
Okay, so if you found that really interesting and eye-opening, subscribe to our channel, give us a like, add your comments underneath. We'll get back to you on those as soon as we can, and then go share this particular video review on the Gnostic Informant and Rabbi Tovia Singer interview, and what he revealed, what was discovered, right? We just have to say, yeah, okay, so if he's Rabbi Tovia Singer saying Matthew pulled the biggest scam, okay, of that period by using alma instead of batula for virgin, young woman, whatever, however it is in the Hebrew, and so forth. Could it be that if it's translated the Christian Bible was translated from the Greek, with that nice form of Greek, into the modern Americanized English, that somebody else, a latter copyist, theologian, scholar, Christian, whoever, changed it, right? Or deliberately, right? Or it was mistranslated using that Latinized form of Greek, etc., etc., at a later period. Okay, see, so you always look at the two sides of the coin. There might be that explanation there. We'd have to go deep and research it to find out, and that as fact, established fact. We have to look for the evidence that proves that evident, etc., etc., before we give you our take on it, right? We go do our research and, basically bring you again that established fact, etc., etc., without making an assumption, right? Taking it out of context and making an assumption. So yeah, if you like this particular video, give us a like, subscribe to our channel, give us a like, add your comments below, and then share it with all your family, friends, and others. We actually found a similar book to what Tovia Singer was talking about, by Franz Delitzsch, obviously a German, 1813 to 1890. It's a free download. We can leave the link to that and his other books below this particular video. So have a quick look at that. The Hebrew New Testament of the British and Foreign Bible Society, a contribution to Hebrew philology by Professor Franz Delitzsch from the Library of the University of California, Leipzig, Dorfling and Frank, 1883, publishing company obviously. Preface: someone will ask me, the author probably, why have you written this in English? In truth, he didn't know. He did so without premeditation, driven instinctively by the gratitude which he owed to the English publishers and patrons of his Hebrew New Testament. One should ask, what is the aim of these pages? And he answered, or one could ask, what is the aim of these pages? And he answered, firstly, they will afford a glimpse into the work of which the Hebrew New Testament is the fruit. Secondly, they show what instructive results have proceeded therefrom for Hebrew grammar, especially syntax. Leipzig, May 1883. The author, right? In a forgotten book entitled Wissenschaft, Kunst, Judentum, the author issued in the year 1838 St. Paul's hymn on love, 1 Corinthians 13, translated into Hebrew, as a specimen of a new Hebrew version of the New Testament. After laborious and expensive preparations, which were aided chiefly by the Bavarian and Norwegian brethren, he published it in 1870 as the largest specimen of the work, the Epistle of St. Paul to the Romans. Many years he sought for a publisher of the whole, the entire book, right, who would take upon himself the expense of, or the whole project, who would take upon himself the expense of publishing and provide for its circulation. At last, the British and Foreign Bible Society, go do your history on them, see if they were the real deal and clean, or they were a sordid organisation with their many errors, lies, etc. they may have, if they have any. Okay, so at last the British and Foreign Bible Society lent him its helpful hand, and having obtained such a powerful and generous protection, the new translation went through the press and forthwith enjoyed God's wonderful blessing. It was completed in the spring of 1877. The text followed there is substantially that of the Sinaitic Codex, with the principal variations of Textus Receptus in brackets, but he soon felt that a text formed by himself alone could not be exempt from individual arbitrariness, and that it was more natural to base the translation on the Receptus, Textus Receptus, and to supplement it with critical remarks. After half a year, a second edition became necessary, which he based on these principles. It bears the date of 1878. Only 2 years later, in 1880, a third edition appeared in a larger form. Even the copies of that third edition were quickly exhausted, and already in October of the same year he prepared at Berlin with his never-to-be-forgotten friend, the late, obviously deceased Reverend Palmer Davies, a fourth electrotyped edition. The text had to be definitely settled, and the work demanded redoubled care. He revised it a third time and was successfully aided by the Reverend S. Driver, now Pusey's successor as Professor of Hebrew at Oxford. Each of these editions represented, as he hoped, a new degree of approximation to the ideal, which even in the fourth electrotype edition of 1882 was still not attained. Therefore, he was agreeably surprised when Mr. James Watt, the successor of the late Davies, informed him that the 5,000 copies of the fourth edition were sold without any remaining. So he sold a whole lot, right? In truth, God has abundantly blessed his work. The team's work, right? Far from priding himself, got a big ego. I sold them all. I'm the man. He acknowledged on the contrary the merits of his fellow labourers, those who work with him, right, on that project, among who are also not a small number of Jewish friends. And he goes on and goes into his explanation of Matthew 9:21. Consequently, the fifth edition is revised more than superficially, and he passed over in silence all the corrections concerning unavoidable typographical faults as disfigurement of letters or defects as to vowels and signs, and he also gave only an account of the grammatical and stylistic emendations, by which, as he hoped, the edition would differ advantageously from the former. So the fifth from the fourth, right? Matthew 9:21, and use the Hebrew there. For she said within herself, changed to this, because it is without support in the biblical Hebrew. And he felt that he should remark once for all that in every verse of his Hebrew New Testament the accentuation had been carefully considered. It goes into the Hebrew. It's everywhere the consequence of the regular accentuation, which requires here for it ought to be accentuated. Other examples, Matthew 7:8, for everyone that asketh receiveth, and he that seeketh findeth. In our Hebrew text, the accents being added, and so forth. He goes on about Matthew 9:5, so that's 11:5, Matthew 11:7, all these different changes that he found, and so forth. And he reveals them. We are not Hebrew readers, so that's why we are not pronouncing the Hebrew. And he carries on extensively, and he's got little information about Erasmus, who was supposedly a man lover. This is just what we read in our research. A seducer of his students, etc., who may have added homosexual undertones to his revision of Jerome's works. He wanted to complete Jerome's translation. Erasmus in his editions has in the Greek text, in the Latin version Crebro, like the Vulgate, after the reading whence Tyndale often, Luther, okay, so Tyndale might have put often, Luther manchmal. Westcott and Hort acknowledge this as the original reading, which, owing to its obscurity, has been variously altered and translated. Yeah, they were apparently dodgy as well. They were the translators or publishers of the Jehovah's Witness New World Translation, and there's a lot of information on them, how they were Freemasons, all this sort of conspiracy stuff. Okay, and there's more information here. It continues. He has some information here. The Hebrew New Testament of the London Society has this in the Hebrew. That is literal, but suggests a false idea as appears by comparison of 1 Kings 2:14, 2 Kings 9:5, Judges 3:20. The best interpretation, which is as much justified by the context as by the Greek use of language, suggests what you should look at, and more information on that. And he's going on here about something else. Okay, so it'll be an interesting book to read. As we said, if we can, and it's downloadable, we will leave the link to it below this video so you can check it out for yourself, and subscribe to our channel. Get back to us on what this Hebrew is saying. Be nice about it. We'd like to learn, to verify what he was actually saying and people's feelings towards what he was saying and how he was saying it, whether it be good or bad, or all true or false, and so forth. We'll probably try to find the other book and bring you a link to that as well. This is something you'd have to take a lot of time to read, and read thoroughly, right? And to find any words that cause you confusion, any misunderstoods, to clear that up, to get the correct definition of it, to get the right concept of it, understanding of it, and so forth.